still ailing with its economy.
I understand why the American people, their attitude is not, it could have been worse. Their attitude is, how do we make sure that we keep on getting it better? And that's what we'll be talking about on Wednesday.
Well, we'll see. What kind of tone should we expect the president to take, and will it help ease the uncertainty over America's future? We're joined by guys who've done this before. Mark Thiessen, former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush and author of Courting Disaster. It's a great book. David Kusnet is a former chief speechwriter for President Clinton and author of Love the Work, Hate the Job. Well, David, I'm going to start with you, even though Mark's right next to me, and that's the book right there. David, a lot of people are saying, go right back to 1995. Go grab Bill Clinton's speech and build off that. In fact, he was coming off a body blow to health care. Will he do that? Will the president do that tonight?
I think he'll do something like that. And it's important to remember that what President Clinton did was not to just give in to what was then a new Republican majority in Congress, but to define some positions that were his positions and had been his positions for his entire public career, and they weren't exactly the same as either the Republicans or the Democrats in the Congress. And in doing that, he elevated himself above both parties.
But he did a subtle admission of, like, maybe I bit off more than I can chew when it came to health care. Let's start anew. If you're writing that, do you put something in there that almost says, hey, maybe I was a little off base?
I think he has to get that message. I think this was supposed to be his victory lap over health care. This is going to be the celebration of his triumph. And then all of a sudden we had terrorist attack in Detroit and Scott Brown coming to victory. And people don't want. He went out in Ohio the other day and said, I'm going to fight. He said fight 20 times. If he comes out and gives a defiant speech where he says his message is I'm fighting, instead of I heard you, I get it, I understand the discontent, then he's going to have a big problem.
And the thing is, David, there is some reports that the Obama administration it doesn't look up to the Clinton administration. Feels as though they're a cut above, certainly of George Bush and of Bill Clinton. Do you see a reluctance to go back and take a page out of what many people deem a successful pivot by your former boss?
Well, President Obama is governing in very different times from what President Clinton governed in. We inherited something of an economic crisis, but nothing like the danger of financial collapse that President Obama inherited. And I think that one thing he needs to do tonight is to distinguish between the things that he had to do when he came into office, and they were largely continuations of what the previous administration had done and of what almost any president would have done in those circumstances. Distinguish between those things and the things that he wants to do and the things that he was elected to do.
I think he's got a crisis in his hands. He's had two blows to him. He's had a terrorist attack, which American people see as a wake-up call of the threat of terror that's out there, and they want to see the president. And they want to see the president sees it as a wake-up call as well. So if he doubles down on his policies, I need you to fund closing of Guantanamo. We're going to keep reading Miranda rights to terrorists. Then he's going to turn off the American people.
Is it me? But if 50 million people are going to watch, and you started writing the speech in November. Haven't you rewritten it entirely since the election in Massachusetts? Is this going to be tough, Mark?
Oh, possibly. They probably rewrote it twice. I mean, they probably had a draft in to him right before he went for Christmas, or at least an outline. And then the terrorist attacks happened, and so they had to rewrite it to deal with that. And then the Scott Brown victory has thrown all that into disarray as well.
And David, would you be surprised that the president did not mention about the mess, the economic mess that he inherited, or make some reference to President Bush?
Well, he's certainly not going to directly mention President Bush. I think he will talk about the situation he inherited. And I was recently rereading the State of the Union speech that President Reagan gave in 1983. That was 2 years into his administration, and he was still talking about the policies and conditions that he inherited. And this is 1 year into President Obama's administration.
It's going to be fascinating. I can't wait. Maybe we'll have you back even tomorrow, because it's going to be on for 4 hours. Mark Thiessen and David Kusnet, thanks so much for joining us. And great speech, great